This time, we are going to talk about the anatomy and physiology of the sow's reproductive system, which has a large length and covers from the vulva to the ovaries. All structures are suspended by the wide ligament. The reproductive system consists of the following parts. Vulva. The vulva external genital part. It is externalized with two lips. At the bottom of them is the clitoris. The vulva is highly vascularized, changing its morphological appearance during the heat, being much more inflamed and edematous. This feature is much more marked in gilts, and it serves as one more tool to detect if a sow is in heat. The second one is the vestibule and vagina. Next to the vulva, we find the vaginal vestibule and the vagina, with a variable joint length between 30 to 40 cm, in whose caudo-ventral part is the urinary meatus. This structure forces the catheter to be inserted with an angle of about 30 to 45 degrees. The urinary tract. The vagina in its cranial parts connects with the cervix, has an immunoprotective function. The second one is the vestibule and vagina. Next to the vulva, we find the vaginal vestibule and the vagina, with a variable joint length between 30 to 40 cm, in whose caudo-ventral part is the urinary meatus. This structure forces the catheter to be inserted with an angle of about 30 to 45 degrees. The urinary tract. The vagina in its cranial parts connects with the cervix, has an immunoprotective function. And the next is the cervix. It is a complex structure, and because of this, designing probes able to cross it without causing injury to it and being able to carry out the technique of post-cervical insemination acquires great importance. This structure is about 2 to 3 cm in diameter and about 15 to 20 cm in length, and forms the gateway to the uterus. It is formed by cervical folds or tuberosities. These folds change consistency due to hormonal influence, remaining closed in the presence of progesterone and staying dilated during estrus. It also has a secretory function of mucous substance, which serves as lubricant at the time of mounting and protective function during pregnancy. Uterus. It is formed by the body of the uterus 4 to 5 cm, where it bifurcates into two uterine horns. The horns have a variable length between individuals due to various factors including race, number of births, and age. They have a tortoise shape and connect the body of the uterus with the oviducts. This is where the embryos will be implanted. In fact, the maximum number of piglets per liter depends greatly on the uterine capacity. The uterus has a wall composed of 3 layers: the endometrium, myometrium, and cercosa. Presents uterine glands along the entire uterine tract, essential in pregnancy. Oviduct. They are thin and long-distance ducts of about 25 cm that join the uterus to the ovaries, which are divided into 3 regions: infundibulum, blister, and isthmus. The part of closest to the ovary, the infundibulum, surrounds it, forming what is known as the ovarian pouch, while the isthmus is attached to the uterus by the uterus junction. In this area, where the sperm remain viable and with fecundating capacity about 24 hours, forming the sperm reservoir. And the last one is the ovaries. They are the female gonads, and they have 2 main functions. The first is the production of oocytes, and the second is the synthesis of reproductive hormones. Their shape is lobed. They are not physically connected to the rest of the reproductive system. They are attached to the rest by the broad ligament of the uterus.
The female chicken reproductive system is made up of the ovary and the oviduct. The ovary is a cluster of developing ova and is located midway between the neck and the tail of the bird and attached at the back. The ovary is fully formed when a pulley chick hatches but is very small until the chick reaches sexual maturity. Oviduct. The oviduct is a twisted tube that is 25 to 27 inches long when fully developed and is divided into 5 major sections. These sections are the infundibulum, magnum, isthmus, shell gland, and vagina. The first part of the oviduct is the infundibulum. Infundibulum is 3 to 4 inches long and engulfs the ovum released from the ovary. The term funnel is an accurate name for this section because it suggests that the infundibulum is waiting for the yolk to fall into it, which is not the case. Instead, the released yolk stays in place and the muscular infundibulum moves to surround it. The yolk remains in the infundibulum for 15 to 17 minutes. The next section of the oviduct is the magnum. Magnum is 13 inches long. It is the largest section of the oviduct, as its name implies, magnum being the Latin word for large. The yolk remains here 3 hours, during which time the thick albumen or egg white forms. The third section of the oviduct is the isthmus, which is 4 inches long. The isthmus, as its name implies, is slightly constricted. The term isthmus referring to a narrow strip of land joining two larger tracts of land. The isthmus is where the inner and outer shell membranes form. The developing egg remains here for 75 minutes. The next section of the oviduct is the shell gland, which is 4 to 5 inches long. In this section, the shell forms on the egg. The shell largely is made of calcium carbonate. The hen's body mobilizes 8 to 10% of body calcium from its bone to make the eggshell. The last part of the oviduct is the vagina, which is about 4 to 5 inches long. The vagina does not really play a part in egg formation, but is important in the laying of the egg. The vagina is made of muscle that helps push the egg out of the hen's body. The bloom or cuticle forms on the egg in the vagina prior to oviposition. The egg travels through the oviduct, small end first, but turns in the vagina and comes out large end first.
The mare's reproductive tract lies in a horizontal position within the abdominal and pelvic cavities. It includes the vulva, vagina, cervix, uterus, oviducts, and ovaries. Vulva. The vulva is the exterior opening to the reproductive canal. It consists of the labia, clitoris, and the vestibule. The construction of this region is important because it serves to protect the mare from the entrance of air and other contaminants into the vaginal vault. Vagina. The vagina consists of a 6 to 8 inches long muscular mucous membrane lined tube which connects the vestibule of the vulva to the vertex. The vaginal tissues must be extremely elastic and extensible to accommodate the penis in breeding and the foal during birth. Cervix. Basically a highly distensible muscle. The cervix is approximately 4 inches long and appears as a circle of folded tissue at the anterior surface of the vaginal vault. Its shapes and characteristics change significantly in response to the body's hormonal environment. In response to increased estrogen produced during estrus, the cervix appears pink due to increased vascularity. During this period, it produces thin, watery mucus, and it is so relaxed that it is often found lying limp on the vaginal floor. Uterus. This is a multi-layered, hollow Y-shaped organ. The base of the Y is called the uterine body, while the two branches are called the hores. The uterus is suspended within the body cavity by two tough, sheet-like structures called the broad ligaments. Sagging of these ligaments with age parity of or trauma can cause a downward tilting of the uterus. This conformation can predispose the mare to the backwash of urine into the reproductive tract and its accumulation at the cervix. Oviducts, also known as the fallopian tubes. The oviducts are small, highly keeled tubes which connects the tip of a uterine horn with an ovary. The ovarian end of the oviduct is called the infundibulum. It is enlarged and shaped like a catcher's mitt with a finger-like projections from its end called fimbriae. Ovary. Male ovaries are unique both in shapes and makeup. They are kidney bean shaped and will have an obvious contrast in size and texture between the breeding and non-breeding seasons. During the breeding season, they are functioning and about the size of a tennis ball. The convex size of the ovary is called the hilus and is the area of attachment to the abdominal cavity. The hilus also provides passage for blood vessels and nerves which serve the entire ovary. This wedge-shaped area is the only portion of the ovary from which an egg may be ovulated.
This is the reproductive system of a cow. The female reproductive system organs consist of the ovary, uterus, cervix, vagina, and vulva. A sketch of the reproductive tract of the cow is shown in the figure. Female reproductive tracts or various farm animals are similar to the cow, but different primarily in the shape of the uterus and cervix. So the first of the parts of the female is the ovary. The ovary or the female gonad is responsible for the two basic functions: the reproduction of the female gamete in the egg or ovum, production of the primary productive hormones, estrogen and progesterone. A cow has bean-shaped ovaries located within the abdominal cavity. Size of the ovaries varies with the stage of reproductive cycle and age of the female, but generally are the 1 or to 1:2 inches long. A cow has bean-shaped ovaries located within the abdominal cavity. Size of the ovaries varies with the stage of reproductive cycle and age of the female, but generally are the 1 or to 1:2 inches long. The next is the oviduct. The oviduct begins as a funnel-shaped tube that engulfs the ovary. This is the funnel portion of the oviduct is called the infundibulum. When ovulation occurs, the ovum is picked by the infundibulum and channeled into oviduct, also known as the fallopian tube. So this is the fallopian tube called as a infundibulum, I should say, where fertilization takes place in a viable sperm are present. Here the ovum remains capable of the fertilization for only a short time. Thus it is essential that sperm be present in the oviduct near the time of evaluation. The ovum moves through the oviduct into the uterine horn within the next 3 to 4 days. In ovum is fertilized that begins embryological development. If not, it degenerates and disappears, and the next estrous cycles of ensues. Where fertilization takes place in a viable sperm are present. Here the ovum remains capable of the fertilization for only a short time. Thus it is essential that sperm be present in the oviduct near the time of evaluation. The ovum moves through the oviduct into the uterine horn within the next 3 to 4 days. In ovum is fertilized it the begins embryological development. If not, it degenerates and disappears, and the next estrous cycles of ensues. So let's proceed to the uterus. So the body of the uterus is of the cow is shortly and poorly developed, while the uterine horns are relatively long and well developed. So the fertilized of embryo moves from the oviduct into the uterine horn, where fetal of the maternal membrane development begins. So let's proceed to the vagina. The vagina serves as receptacle of the male penis during cervix. In the cow, the cement of the deposit in the vagina near the cervix during the natural mating with the bull. When artificial insemination is used, an insemination instrument is a thread through the vagina and cervix on cement is deposited at the uterine sides of the cervix. So the urine is discharged from the urinary bladder through the urethra, which open into the base of the vagina. The region behind the urethral opening is called as the vestibule. So vestibule is a common passageway from both the urinary and reproductive system. The external opening of the vagina is called. So yun na yung vulva.
The reproductive tract of sheep. The female reproductive tract consists of the vulva, labia, vagina, cervix, body of the uterus, uterine horns, oviduct, and the ovary. Ovaries. The ovaries contain the ova and secrete female reproductive hormones. Oviduct. The oviduct opens like a funnel near the ovary. The infundibulum receives ova released from the ovary and transport them to the site of fertilization in the oviduct. Uterus. The uterus consists of two separate horns. In animals with multiple births, each horns can contain one or more fetuses. The uterus provides a proper environment for embryo development, supports development of the fetus, and transports the fetus out of the material body of during birth. The cervix is the gateway to the uterus and is a muscular canal consisting of several folds of tissue referred to as rings. The cervix has relatively little smooth musculature. It participates in sperm transport and during pregnancy blocks bacterial invasion. The mucus produced during pregnancy forms a plug that makes the opening through the cervix impermeable for microorganisms and spermatozoa. Vagina. This is the exterior portion of the female reproductive tract and is the site of semen deposition during natural mating. Vulva. Barrier for preventing external contamination of the female reproductive tract.
This is a reproductive system of a female goat. The ovaries. The ovaries contain the ova, eggs, and secrete female reproductive hormones, progesterone and estrogens. Oviduct. The oviduct opens like a funnel, the infundibulum near the ovary. The infundibulum receives ova released from the ovary and transport them to the site of fertilization in the oviduct. The oviduct is involved in sperm transport to the site of fertilization, provides a proper environment for ova and sperm fertilization, and transport the subsequent embryo to the uterus. This is a reproductive system of a female goat. The ovaries. The ovaries contain the ova, eggs, and secrete female reproductive hormones, progesterone and estrogens. Oviduct. The oviduct opens like a funnel, the infundibulum near the ovary. The infundibulum receives ova released from the ovary and transport them to the site of fertilization in the oviduct. The oviduct is involved in sperm transport to the site of fertilization, provides a proper environment for ova and sperm fertilization, and transport the subsequent embryo to the uterus. The uterus. The uterus consists of two separate horns, corona. In animals with multiple births, each horn can contain one or more fetuses. The uterus provides a proper environment for embryo development, supports development of the fetus, supplying nutrients, removing waste, and protecting the fetus, and that transports the fetus out of the maternal body during birth. The cervix. The cervix is the gateway to the uterus and is a muscular canal consisting of several folds of tissue referred to as rings. The cervix has relatively little smooth musculature. It participates in sperm transport and during the pregnancy, blocks bacterial invasion. The mucus produced during pregnancy, also the luteal phase, forms a plug that makes the opening through the cervix impermeable for microorganisms and spermatozoa. The vagina. This is the exterior portion of the female reproductive tract and is the site of semen deposition during natural mating. The vulva. Barrier for preventing external contamination of the female reproductive tract.
Cow. A cow is a female bovine. The external parts of the female reproductive tract are the clitoris and vulva. Sow. A sow is a female swine. The sow's reproductive system differs from the cow in that the uterine horns are more prominent in the sow. Ewe. The ewe is female sheep. Its reproductive system is very much like the cow's. Mare. In horses, the female is called a mare. The mare has a smoother cervix without folds like the cow's. Fowl. The female reproductive system in fowl is quite different from that other mammals. Only the left ovary and oviducts of the hen are functional, although the right is found is an underdeveloped state. The oviduct has 5 parts: the infundibulum, magnum, isthmus, uterus, and the vagina. A cloaca and vent are located at the end of the oviduct.